What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Hurdle here on the Player Profiler YouTube channel, as well as the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. We're back again, baby. It's Tuesday, and this time, Matty, we got a little bit of football to talk about tonight because the OTAs have began in the NFL, and that's the name of the game tonight, is we're going to be talking about some of the players that have done the most and have showed out during OTAs. And it's kind of a tough thing to do because, yeah, they're not in pads. Yes, they're in shorts, but they do got helmets on, and they do got some quarterbacks throwing them the football. So it doesn't matter, or handing it off, whatever you want to call it. But mostly it's receivers and tight ends that seem to have gotten a lot of the compliments here. So we're going to walk through each and every one of these teams from the first 2 days of training camp. But first off, Matty, coming off the weekend, baby. How was the weekend?
Great weekend. Again, we're in May now, baby. So the weather's great. It's good to go out, get outside, have some fun, do some yard work. That's kind of what I did this weekend, just getting into the yard work stuff. It's fun. But I can't believe we're studying actual football. I know Mike Lombardi calls it the misevaluation season because everyone makes plays in basketball shorts and t-shirts, but it's still good to see new faces in new places throwing to new players.
This is going to be one thing, Matty, that this is officially, they call it lying season, as you mentioned with Lombardi here, but it's officially like the beginning of the 2024 season, officially, right? People say like, fall camp or whatever is the beginning. It's really the beginning right now because the draft was just complete. Mm-hmm. And as Alex always says, they tell you everything that they intend to do and everything they aspire to do, these franchises do during the NFL draft. And they did that. But now they're on the field. Now you're going to hear comments from the head coach about this player. And one thing that I know Hayden Winks did a couple years ago from Underdog, I have no idea if he still does it or not because I don't consume a ton of content. I'm just going to be honest with you, is he used to track not everything, but he used to track comments from coaches, comments from people on social media about notes that they grabbed from, beat writers, whatever it may be, and just kept an order, kept track of everything. I'm going to start doing that starting actually yesterday, because yesterday was May 20th when OTAs began. And I'm just going to start keeping notes. So let's start at the top here. The first note that I got written down here. And again, we're taking these notes from the best Twitter account, in my opinion, in the world. X now, I guess, is 32 Beat Writers. 32 Beat Writers. You can go subscribe over to 32beatwriters.com. Those guys are freaking awesome. I've had them on the Roster Watch show, and they do it the right way. They're not aggregators. They're not a shitty account that just, takes people's stuff and posts it. They literally give credit to everybody that brings this knowledge forefront. So go over to 32 Beat Writers and subscribe to their stuff as well. But first and foremost, Jonathan Gannon came out and said about Zay Jones, who they acquired, who's formerly of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He said, Zay Jones is worth the price of admission in 3-position receiver. He's extremely smart. Basically saying, all right, we brought this guy in. This is not new news, right? This is something that we've known since he came out of East Carolina. He was a savage at East Carolina, and he's just bounced around a couple teams, whether it was the Bills to the Jaguars, whatever. Zay Jones is a good football player. The interesting thing, though, now is that he is 6'2", 6'3", 215. Michael Wilson is 6'2", 6'3", 215. Marv, 6'3", 215. These guys are all the same body type, right? And they still do have a guy named Greg Dortch there. They still got some speed, some undersized players. No Rondell Moore. But it does feel like they're starting to have that, not prototypical, but that always mentioned, building a basketball team, right? They're building a basketball team in the receiver room, essentially. But what do you think about Zay Jones there down in Arizona?
Ultimately, I think he could be, if he sticks around and he's healthy, he's on the field, I think he's going to cap upside around him. Not to the point where, Marv can't be Rookie of the Year or Trey McBride doesn't produce, but I think he just kind of puts a little bit of a damper on reaching that 99th percentile outcome in terms of, on-field production, because he's a professional and his numbers don't always stick around, but he has stuck around for a reason because he, brings things to a field, to a team that's valuable. And I think that landing on the Cardinals is good for Murray. We love it for Kyler Murray. At the end of the day, though, I don't think that we could get as excited, over 700 yards receiving of Michael Wilson last year. I think now we're probably going to see him stick around there. I don't think he goes up to 8 or 9.
And the other players on that roster, I mentioned Greg Dortch a second ago, Chris Moore, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, Zach Pascal, formerly of the Colts and the Eagles, Dan Chisnia from the Vikings, who's a kind of a low-key guy on special teams, got banged up, Andre Basellia, who we saw took some snaps last year. Like, it's not exactly the strongest core behind him. And then rookies Tejuan Palmer, who was a 6th-round pick out of UAB, and Xavier Weaver from Colorado. So I don't think it's a very hard room for Zay. I think he's going to 100% make the roster. And I think exactly what you just heard, like, it seems like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 is a wide open slot for a guy like Zay, who they think can complement at all 3 positions.
So I want to talk about what's going on for the Atlanta Falcons right now in OTAs. And I think what we will see in 24 is much of what we saw from the Vikings in 23 in regards to Kirk Cousins, the hyperproduction. One of my bold calls last year was Kirk Cousins throwing for 50 touchdowns, and I felt good by it. I mean, he would have needed to go a little bit berserk to get to that mark. But man, he was just behind pace. I mean, he was pacing to be in the 40s. And a lot of that reasoning was because good offensive line, good weaponry, mediocre defense. And now he goes to Atlanta, and you're seeing the connection already there with Drake London. Darnell Mooney, it was quoted saying that the connection is already there, just where, Drake likes the ball. He's been on time with everybody. So there's no lack of rhythm at all. So even Darnell Mooney, a newcomer, is already realizing the connection that Cousins is having with his wide receiver 1. We've seen the highlights of Pitts, and Pitts is Kyle Pitts. Okay, the athleticism hasn't gone anywhere, but the upside also remains. And Darnell Mooney has been seen making some deep route, some deep plays, utilizing that speed. And then again, the Falcons using the 8th overall selection to take a backup quarterback, an heir apparent quarterback, has left enough holes in that defense where this team might be in more shootouts than they're not. They didn't do enough to address the defensive side of the ball, so I don't think they're going to play a slow pace of football. So I think right now what we're going to be staring into the eyes of a bit of an offensive bonanza for the Atlanta Falcons.
Everybody knows about the Pitts and London thing, but my big feeling question for this whole offense is the other player, the other, not Bijan, the other receiver in this offense. And it's because we know Kirk Cousins can get that football out. We know he can feed Jefferson. We know he could feed Rudolph. We know he could feed the backfield, but he also could feed Thielen. He could feed Addison. He could feed KJ Osborne. He could feed, a number of these guys. Hawkinson, I guess, was the one I should have went to. I don't remember if he was definitely there with Rudolph, because Rudolph was the one that caught that touchdown against the Saints in the playoffs. My point taken is Mooney and Rondale Moore. A lot of people I see on the streets right now are team Rondale Moore in the 18th round on underdog, and they're all about drafting him because he's a value and because who's going to be the number 3 in that offense and because he can take carries out of the backfield. But Matty, I venture to think this Darnell Mooney thing matters a little bit more than the Rondale Moore thing. Mooney is a guy that we saw come into Chicago and just work right away. And I think that, the notes we've read, the connection's already there. Kirk Cousins is melding with this offense very well. I think Mooney is a lot more compatible to what Kirk Cousins brings to the table in Atlanta. And you're getting him right now, wide receiver 68 over on underdog, which is right in the area of Dontavian Wicks, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Polk, Roman Wilson, Troy Franklin, all these rookies ahead of Michael Wilson, who we just talked about from the Cardinals, ahead of Rashad Bateman, guys of this nature. I think he's in an area he belongs, but I feel good about it. Like you're getting him after Cooks, Judy, Josh Palmer, things of that nature. I think the Mooney thing, especially in best ball, the connection that I think he's going to have or will have with Kirk Cousins, where we know this guy, and this might sound cocky maybe, but we know Darnell Mooney has the ability to go for 800, 900, 1,000 yards. It all just really depends on the volume this offense decides to put out. But Mooney's one for me that Yes, his ADP is a handful higher. Right, he's wide receiver 68, going off at 148 right now on Underdog. And if you look at Rondale Moore, he's wide receiver 91, going off at 211. So the value is not quite there with Mooney, but I think I
Yeah, but the
prefer
value in
Mooney.
dog shit is dog shit. I don't care when you pick up dog shit; it's still dog shit on your shoe. I would much rather have a Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney does have a 1,000-yard season under his belt in the professional ranks. He also got the same contract that Gabe Davis got, that Curtis Samuel got, that 3 years, $33 million, same thing that Jacoby Myers got. So I mean, the Falcons clearly view Darnell Mooney as a piece to this puzzle, a guy that's going to have a role, and he does. I mean, say what you will, look at his profile. It's kind of a cheap version of Jordan Addison, a little bit short, quick, can make plays downfield, and like you said, that's compatible with what Kirk Cousins, preferred last year.
All right, I want to move on to the Buffalo Bills because this is a big one. This is a massive one that on night one of the NFL draft, I was talking to Nick Coder. I said, "Hey man, this is where Buffalo's going in round one." They didn't do it in round one; they did it in round two. They took Keon Coleman here. Mike Jones of The Athletic reports on Keon Coleman. He lacks Diggs's speed, but he does have great size, and with it comes potential to become an imposing possession receiver. Coleman will get to work on developing chemistry with Allen and learning how to beat press coverage, something he saw little of in college. Just about a couple hours ago, Dan Feets tweeted out that Sean McDermott says Keon Coleman has a way with words and a great sense of humor, but what he appreciates most is his willingness to learn and his work ethic. Matty, let's just cut to the chase, man. Keon Coleman, year one. Keon Coleman, year one. Again, he's teed up. He's in the opportunity of all opportunities here with Josh Allen. Are we going to get over our skis on this thing? Are we going to push it up respectively, like where it belongs? Or how are we feeling about Keon Coleman in his maturation process? Because I love every bit about it.
So this is my analogy for Keon Coleman heading into his rookie season. If you watch wrestling, if you watch WWE, they have something called the ladder match. And the goal of this match is a ladder or to the belts, the briefcase, whatever it is dangled at the top of the stadium, in the middle of the ring. You set up a ladder, you climb the ladder, you yank it down, you're the champ, you got the money in the bank briefcase, whatever. The Keon Coleman, this is what Keon Coleman is. It's climbing that ladder, and as you climb that ladder, we're all going to climb it because the ADPs are going to go up. The demand's going to go up. The market price is going to go up. We're all going to keep climbing this ladder, and we're going to get to a point where we're going to reach for that fucking belt. We're going to reach for it, and we're going to risk a lot for it. So if you're willing to make the lunge at the belt and potentially hold the gold or fall 30 feet to your backside, those will be the bold that benefit or the bold that crash, because whether we like it or not, the value for Coleman is already gone. It's losing steam every day. We were getting him in the middle of the second. He's going to climb above the Brian Thomases. He's going to climb above the Ladd McConkeys if this drumbeat continues, and I expect it to. So are you bold enough to get Keon Coleman to hoist the gold? I'm going to be. I'm going to be ballsy on Keon Coleman because I do think that by hook or by crook, whether it be 1,000 yards receiving on 80 catches, or if it's 950 yards but 10, 12 touchdowns, I think he's going to make his hay for fantasy.
This year in Underdog, we'll use Underdog for an analogy because it's the best ADP we have right now for 2024 seasonal. Rookie wide receivers. Marvin Harrison's going off at wide receiver 9 with an ADP of 13.5. Malik Neighbors going off at wide receiver 20, 29.5. Xavier Worthy's going off at wide receiver 34, 59.3. Roma Dunze's wide receiver 37, so that's wide receiver 4 in the class. Xavier Worthy's up to wide receiver 3. Roma Dunze's 67.1. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 39, 70.5. Again, that right there is wide receiver 5, and Keon Coleman is wide receiver 6. Wide receiver 40 in 2024, with Brian Thomas just a few spots behind. So Keon Coleman has already eclipsed Brian Thomas, and he is mere inches away from dunking over Ladd McConkey into the top 40. Jordan Addison, Roma Dunze, Calvin Ridley. It's gone time. If it continues to build and we continue to hear things, and all we really need, Matty, is literally what you're saying. Like, all we need to do is see a couple clips. You're going to see that number keep climbing. He's at 71 right now. I could venture to bet money he doesn't end. He ends up in the mid 50s. If I had to guess right now about where his like mid-August ADP is going to be, probably in the mid to early 50s, which puts him right now about wide receiver 31, 32, 33, around the Worthy, Jaden Reed area. I mean, if we're seeing the drum beat and we're seeing the connectivity in practice, there's no reason not to think that can happen and that can still be of value.
Yeah, it could definitely still be of value. But like I said, you're not getting him at the bottom of the ladder. You're gonna have to climb that baby to the top and take and risk it for the biscuit. But he's got that upside. He landed in the best landing spot for his talent and his ability to make plays immediately.
All right, we appreciate you guys for tapping in, tuning in. Make sure to please click that like button. Please click subscribe. Remember, we're here every single Tuesday and Wednesday night on the Hurdl. Tuesdays are on both Player Profiler and the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Wednesdays, just on the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Tuesday night, we try to keep it football, try to keep it NFL based, try to talk about everything in the landscape. And Wednesday night, Matty and Seth have been dominating the Dynasty streets. If you want to get all the best Dynasty analysis, coming over to the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Also, don't remember to go over to thedraftrankings.com and check out everything. Matty just published a trade chart over at thedraftrankings.com, and it's got the updated kind of values and thoughts that he has for people in Dynasty right now. Matty, you want to give him a little sleeper, one of these guys that you kind of threw on there this week?
Well, we talked about him earlier, Darnell Mooney. Great value right now. He's an easy buy candidate with a ton of upside.
There it is. All right, let's continue this OTA conversation. And just one comment about the Carolina Panthers. They say Xavier, we saw some videos of Xavier Legette come out. He looks efficient. He looks smooth. He looks big, fast, strong. He's got a big-ass leg sleeve on, not a brace, a sleeve. They say he's getting used in many ways, including sweeps from the wide receiver position, from slot. He's also lined up both inside and outside of passing plays. Bryce Young and Legette are much sharper and more connected than the quarterbacks in rookie camps. Quarterbacks in rookie camps were with Legette. So obviously that makes a ton of sense because Bryce Young is better than any of the quarterbacks they brought in for that. They also mentioned that Ian Thomas had a really strong first day at OTAs. He's also in year 7. And they just drafted Jadavian Sanders. So we're kind of going to write that one down and just kind of have expectations of that being a nil because we also know they like Tommy Tremble. Matty, where do you want to go from now?
We could be really quick on this, but I think it's time for the fantasy gamers to put Devon Bailey on your radars. Sean Payton came out and said that his plans were, in quotes, we see him as a guy who can play big outside X and then come in the slot. No diddy. But Devon Bailey now here.
There's no way you just said that. There's no way.
No. But anyway, let's get serious here because Devon Bailey is a guy that I had I think wide receiver 37 in the class, 34 in the class. He is now on top 24 watch, top 20 watch. If he can find a spot in a very, very murky wide receiver room that could lose, Cortland Sutton before long. Did just trade away Jerry Jeudy, brought in Troy Franklin, who's really just kind of, that deep down threat. And Mims hasn't found a spot. And you look at Bailey's profile, he looks a lot like a Michael Thomas type of player. Sean Payton made Slant Boy very relevant. So now Devon Bailey is going to be on my radar, and he's going to be someone that now I'm going to go back to all these rookie drafts I've been doing, and I'm going to go try to put in bids for him. So I'm lucky that this doesn't come out until later on so I can get a head start on all you fools.
Hey, Bailey's definitely one that it happens every year, right? That one guy kind of gets overlooked a little bit, and he does get drafted, and this guy goes round 7. Remember a couple of years ago, it was Montreal Washington to the Denver Broncos, and he did a whole lot of not much with the Broncos. But over the last 2 years, Bailey's got over 1,000 yards with Utah. So respect has got to be respected. 6'4", 205, runs a 4.47. He's got the athleticism to do it. I can't argue with you when it comes to Devon Bailey. The one player that I have been drafting in this offense for the rookie drafts has been definitely our boy Blake Watson. there's no comments. There's nothing that's come out about him in the last couple of days. But, last week on the post-draft press conferences, Sean Payton just did kind of talk about the importance of having guys he likes in this backfield. And we know he liked McLaughlin last year. Williams is there. They brought in Estime, but there was more compliments to Blake Watson than it was to Estime. And you guys know I was a big Estime guy coming in after I saw the landing spot. Not really prospect dependent, more so landing spot dependent, but I think Blake Watson also fits. I like Blake Watson as a prospect better, if we're being honest with ourselves, when I left the the Shrine Bowl. So let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Joel Erickson reports on Alec Pierce that Pierce was often open deep in Shane Steichen's offense last year, but former backup Gardner Minshew was reluctant to throw the ball downfield, led to more than a dozen missed opportunities over the course of the season. We watched all last offseason how Anthony Richardson was targeting Pierce down the field in practices. Let's see if this continues, as the two really seem to form a connection. Though they did bring in a guy named Adonai Mitchell. And wide receiver coach Reggie Wayne compliments Adonai on the way he got in and out of his routes. He's a guy that's very different than everybody, and we have in our room. I already knew that his hands were real strong. To be 6'2", to be able to get in and out of breaks the way he does is very special. It's kind of weird looking at times, but it works for him. If he's throwing me off, I know he's throwing the DB off. So, again, glowing reviews from the great Reggie Wayne, and kind of seeing how both of these receivers are going to be competing through the process. We haven't heard a damn thing about Josh Downs, and we know who Michael Pittman is, but it seems like Adonai and Alec Pierce are going to be vying for reps on day one of the 2024 NFL season.
Yeah, the Colts are going to be very intriguing coming into camp because we have to see how kind of the new pieces mold, and then we want to see Anthony Richardson coming back. So it's going to be I don't want to just use the term exciting because obviously exciting is more than that, because it's important to how we approach the season. We have high expectations for these guys. The next place I want to go, Cody, if I could scroll down the list a little bit here, is Miami. I want to take a pit stop in Miami because my guy, Jalen Wright, he looks like a part of the squad. He looks exactly like what they need, and he is the heir apparent to Raheem Mostert. He is the heir apparent to that role that was fruitful for 18 touchdowns last year on the ground. And Joe Hazy, which is a beat writer down there, he said that his speed, it's powerful. Some guys look like they're gliding. With Jalen Wright, it's like digging into the ground and attacking every step. It's like watching a thoroughbred. That's kind of what we got out of Isaiah Pacheco, and he was kind of my comp for Jalen Wright was Isaiah Pacheco because of how powerful he runs. You say it all the time, the lightning bolts in the quads. And if there is an injury to Raheem Mostert early, Jalen Wright is going to be an insane value for fantasy gamers.
We're going to run through a couple more here, and I want to go up to your neck of the woods, but I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to let you do the lab, because if I let you bring it up, we're going to be here for an hour. So I'm just going to say it.
Smart
Keep your pants on, keep your seatbelt on, keep your hat on, just stay in your seat. All right.
Okay. I can do that.
Jacoby Brissett. This is day one of 11 on 11. Jacoby Brissett was in for 8 snaps. Bailey Zappi was in for 4. Drake May was in for 3. Brissett was 5 for 6. Zappi 1 for 1. May 2 for 3. Again, this is, no pads, stuff of that nature. Lot of basic route schemes and things of that nature. Practice ended 15 minutes ago, and I quote, Drake May, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker are the last players on the field, extending their work together. May is calling out what routes he wants at half speed before the wide receivers run them. Excite. Color me excite. Brian Hines on Antonio Gibson. Gibson's speed was evident in the non-contact setting as well as his wide receiver background. Gibson should have a role for himself in this offense. That scares me a little bit. I love it because we know what the speed is. We know he can run a 4.4. We know who he is as a receiver and a running back. And then the next compliment is to Ramondre Stevenson. On the day that saw the Patriots offense focus on early down work, Stevenson had plenty to do. Not only did he take a number of zone handoffs, but he also was targeted both in the screen game and the traditional drop back passing game. He appeared quick and looked well conditioned. Matty, I just wanted to throw the compliment in there about Drake May, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker. But the
Mhm.
thing I want to talk about is Gibson and Stevenson. What are we doing?
For me, the way I see it, and I'm very biased. I'll admit I got my Gibson colored glasses on, but I've in my ranks I've dropped Stevenson and I've propelled Gibson. I think they're going to end up being in the middle, both settling around running back 30-ish. That's kind of where I have them. I think it's 27 and 30, something like that. It's close because at the end of the day, Stevenson's been good. He's been an effective runner. He's been a reliable runner for them. He is going to earn a lot of the early down work, but I think that for this team especially, that's going to be so green at so many important spots. The easy throws become, the relied upon ones, the more frequent ones. And when I think Antonio Gibson's going to be on the field, the difference in a playmaking ability from Stevenson to Gibson is going to be shocking. And the people that don't know, I'm going to say, well, what about Stevenson? He had 69 receptions, just 2 years ago. But if you watch those games, as closely as I did, there were a lot of checkdowns, a lot of 7 receptions for 40 yards, a whole lot of, it was 6 receptions for 10 yards. He just broke one for 40. It just wasn't a repeatable process. It wasn't you can't count on it. Where Gibson, he could be efficient in everything he does on the field. And if Stevenson does get hurt, which he did last year, Gibson could be in a role that just becomes a fantasy monster.
All right, last take here. I'm gonna draw this one out for you, and I want you to take it out.
Okay.
Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, we know what they are. They both got the 4.3, the 4.2 speed in Kansas City. Rashee Rice has some off-field stuff he's digging through right now. We're betting on likely a suspension just because of the way things go. But we have no idea what that's going to look like. He will be at OTAs and participating in drills right now, but so is Keyshawn Butte right now for the New England Patriots. We have no expectation of him being on the roster when the season begins, more than likely. But with the build of this Kansas City receiver room, again, Kadarius Toney is still there. Sky Moore is still there. Justin Watson, the great Justin Watson. Rashee Rice is suspended. You can expect Worthy and Hollywood Brown to be the 2 leading receivers in receptions and yards. But that does elevate somebody else in the room. And one of the few notes we got out of camp was, yes, most impressive aspect of Worthy's game is blah, 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 blah. Keontae Ingram, a dark horse to be the running back 3 in the roster. But Justin Ross. What are the odds Justin Ross is the number 4 wide receiver in this offense, ahead of Sky Moore, ahead of Kadarius Toney, ahead of Cornell Powell? What are the odds he finishes the season 4th in the pecking order, just due to, in part, to Rashee Rice potentially being suspended and with his maturation process finally catching up?
I'm going to go pretty high. I'm going to go with 30%. And that might seem low, but I think that's really high for a guy like Justin Ross, because when you look at just the archetypes of who's on the field and what they have, the redundancies are the guys who have played like absolute dog water. So why not eliminate the redundancies in Kadarius Toney and in Sky Moore? Because obviously Hollywood and Worthy are cemented as the top 2 receivers on this field. And then Rashee Rice, suspended or not, he's going to be on the team. You can't get rid of that. And then after that, you probably want to keep a Justin Watson for the veteranship, the connection he's had, but he's made some awful drops over the years. He's been so unreliable for Patrick Mahomes that if you get a guy with the skill set of Justin Ross, and a lot of people have already forgotten, when this guy was a freshman at Clemson, Ross was the boss. And the descent in his fall is really quite sad because, there's a lot of back issues and things of that nature where the talent's there. And if there is a team to extract that type of talent, I mean, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And to be the wide receiver 4, I think that I think it's low overall, but 30% for me, I think that's kind of high given where he's been forgotten everywhere.
And for people that are out there saying, what? Listen, I know they had added 2 speedsters. This is going to look like a different offense, but last year, just the receivers, no running backs, no tight ends. Rashee Rice, 79 receptions. Justin Watson, 2nd at the wide receiver position with 27. Kadarius Toney, third with 27. MVS, fourth with 21. Sky Moore, fifth with 21. So
Pathetic.
it was literally 79, 27, 27, 21, 21. So it's not even out of the realm of possibility at all that he eclipses Sky, eclipses Kadarius and Watson and things of that nature. So 30%, I like it, Matty. That's the show. That's the Hurdle here on Player Profiler and the Executives of Fantasy Football YouTube channel. You can go follow Matty over at Matty Kiwoom on Twitter. You can follow me at Cody Carpentier. We appreciate you. We love you. And we'll be back tomorrow night with more from the Hurdle.